Hello everyone, it's Ezel from the Thera channel, and this time we are going over the new rules video, as we previously had one uploaded before, but now with the advent of new cards, we decided to update the rules and make them more cohesive. So first up, let's go ahead and talk about the standard how to win at the game of Thera. Thera is a two-player trading card game. To win, you either have to deal 10 damage to your opponent, or if your opponent would draw cards and they have none left in their song, aka their deck, you win the game via song out. To do this, you play a variety of creatures and spells, use traps to defend you and your creatures during your opponent's turn, and you set runes that have a permanent effect on the battle. All around, there are many different card types, like I just said, to go over in the game of Thera. So we're going to get that started, shall we, by also talking about how to actually build a song, aka your deck, and that would be with song composition. A song, otherwise known as a deck, must have 50 cards to play and can have up to 4 copies of a card that share the same name as one another, does not apply to effects that change card names, and a song must be built up of cards, all from the same nation. There are 5 nations in total: Ezel, Lagro, Drafir, Sarwan, and Lyrica. You cannot mix nations together. When building songs, the song must contain 10 triggers, but the remaining 40 cards are made up of any combination of creatures, spells, traps, and runes. Triggers, as stated above, your song may contain only 10 of them. You can have any number of draw triggers and damage triggers each, but you can only have a max of 5 heal triggers in one song. But you can run less than 5 heal triggers, you can run 3, you can run 4, you could run 5 draws and 5 damages. Triggers also have varying shield values depending on their trigger type. Heal triggers have 150 shield, draw triggers have 100 shield, and damage triggers have 50 shields. Heal triggers, when you're revealed in the gift check or damage check, you can send 1 card in your damage zone to the drop zone. Draw triggers, when revealed in the gift check or damage check, allow you to draw 1 card from the top of your song. And as for damage triggers, when revealed in the gift check or damage check, they can allow you to deal 1 damage to your opponent. All of them have varying effects, so it's very nice to have a good combination of them, but it also depends on what your song is attempting to do. That will debate whether you run certain triggers or not. Then we have our creatures. The level of each creature is in the top left side over here, above the level label. Important note to keep in mind that there are 3 different creature levels: levels 1, 2, and 3. The nation symbol in the top right above the nation label. In between the level and the nation is the creature's name, and which is directly above the creature's type name. For example, Crimson Draco Kid here is a level 1 from the Arizona nation, and his name is right between those two, and he's a dragon as stated directly below him. Each creature has a damage output and a power level at the bottom center of the card. The numbers for each are present. On the left, typically 1 is the damage the creature can do when it attacks directly or destroys a creature. The number on the right is the power. So in the case of Crimson Draco Kid, once more, the number on the right, the 100, is the attack power that he has, and the number on the left is his damage power. And then under each creature's nation symbol is an icon. The icon will either be a gift or a shield icon. In the case of Crimson Draco Kid here, it's a shield, and in the case of Tyresis on the side over here is a gift. Level 1s typically have shield icons, while level 2s and 3s mostly have gift icons, but this isn't the case for all of them. There are some rare exceptions to this, where some level 3s will have shield icons and some level 1s will have gift icons. It really just depends on what the card is. Safeguards are a very important factor in each song, as they are special level 1s that can be discarded from the hand when your opponent attacks you in order to nullify an attack. Each song may have up to 4 safeguards max. All around, they are very powerful creatures. Every nation has at least 1 going out of the trial songs, and again, being able to nullify an attack just by simply being discarded is a very nice thing to have. You don't have to run them at 4 copies if you don't want to, but it is highly recommended you put them at 4. Then we have our spells. Spells can only be played on your turn unless specified. Once spells are played, they are sent to the drop zone unless specified, and at the top left of the card is the nation from where it comes from. So in the case of Unfair Deal over here, it comes from the nation of Drafir. Following spells, however, they can typically only be played during your turn, like I said earlier, unless specified, but for traps, they can be played from your hand during either player's turn when their conditions are activated and you pay the cost. For example, Fire Blast over here is a trap from Arizona, and as stated, by paying 2, we'll go over what pay is later, but when your opponent will play a spell or a trap, regardless of whose turn it is, you can deal them 1 damage. All around, Fire Blast is a very solid card, and there are plenty of traps that work like this as well, where they can proc either during your turn or your opponent's turn. Most of them will go off during your opponent's turn, but it is nice that you have some flexibility on your turn with how you can counter your opponent's move. As for runes when played are set and stay on the field until their maintenance cost cannot be paid. Their maintenance cost is optional, and some runes also have on-place costs. So in the case of, say, for example, Strength of Arizona over here, it is a simple pay 1 just to activate its ability. There is no on-place cost, there's no maintenance cost, meaning it doesn't have to be destroyed. I mean, the second you place it, it's just there for the rest of the game unless your opponent finds a way to destroy it. Now, a rune that does have an on-place cost, say for example, Called It over here, you have to pay the cost if you want to place on the field, and then of course it has the maintenance cost of being paid 1, which means at the start of your turn you have to pay that cost, and if you do not, then the rune is destroyed. Again, it is optional, so you can just choose to play it for 1 turn and then destroy it the following turn, but if you have no pay face up regardless, the rune will be destroyed at the start of your turn. So it is important to realize how your pay can affect your next few doing moves, even if you are constantly getting your pay back. More in detail later. As for summoning is very simple in this game. There are two different types of summoning: normal summoning and special summoning. So there's a summoning cap, as it's called, where pretty much you can normal summon any amount of creatures per turn that levels equal a total of 3 or less. For example, if you have 3 level 1s, you can summon all of them at once. So, you know, level 1 plus level 1 plus level 1 equals level 3. Or you could also just summon one level 3 instead on its own. Or you could summon a level 2 and a level 1. As long as their max total equals 3, you can summon up to that amount. And then special summoning, by using a creature's ability or the effect of a spell, trap, or rune, you can special summon any creature regardless of its level unless the card states otherwise. This special summoning will not count towards the level of the normal summons you made this turn. Say, for example, you are playing Sauron and you normal summon Traveling Necromancer, and then you use Traveling Necromancer's Renew to special summon Vicious Wrath. Well, even though Vicious Wrath is a level 2, because it was special summoned and not normal summoned, you still have the ability to normal summon up to 2 more cards, whether they be 2 level 1s or just another level 2, because the only level you summoned this turn was level 1 with Traveling Necromancer. So it is important to get your summonings right, but at the same time, with the way the game is constructed, you should be fine just going off of different methods. As for the field zone, so the playing field for Thera has many different zones to implore smooth gameplay. So there's the drop zone, there's the song, there's the damage zone, and there's the creature and the rune zone. Now, these different areas, obviously in the song zone, that's where you place your song face down after you shuffle. Your drop zone is where your cards go after they're destroyed, or if there's spells and traps or runes and they're just placed there afterwards. Banish zone is where cards go beyond the drop zone and are sent there via card effects, and typically are not accessible unless you're playing something like Draft Fear, Black Magic, where you can play spells from the Banish zone. Creature zone, obviously just where you place your creatures. Rune zone, also obvious, where you just place your runes. And as for the damage zone, also obvious, you just place your cards that will go into the damage into your damage zone. Also, one more important thing to note about the damage zone, cards revealed for damage checks are played into the zone face up unless specified after trigger effects resolve. Say, for example, you damage check a damage trigger. The damage trigger does not immediately go to the damage zone. Its ability activates first and then it goes to the damage zone, which is important to note. If both players are at 9 damage and then your opponent deals you a damage, you reveal a damage trigger and then you deal them a damage, and if they don't reveal a heal trigger or damage trigger because their damage check would revolve first, then they would go to 10 damage, meaning you would win. So it is important to keep track of that. And as for playing the game, now this is the important part where all of us have come here for. So to start a match, you shuffle your song and you place it down in the song zone. Then you draw the top 5 cards of your song. Mulliganing, after you've drawn your 5 cards, you may choose any number of them and then send them to the bottom of your song. Once you have, you draw cards equal to the number of cards you sent to the bottom. Afterwards, you can shuffle your song, and then this is called a mulligan, and you can only perform it once. You may choose not to perform your mulligan, that is also an option. And at the beginning of the game, after each player has drawn their cards, they decide who goes first via rock, paper, scissors, or a coin flip, or any other method of deciding who goes first. So those are just 2 preferred ones. The winning player must go first, and then once the player going first has been decided, the game begins by both players saying, "Knowledge release, Grenmore Open." Now for the turn order. So the turn order goes as followed. The start phase. This is the start of the turn. Draw phase. Draw 1 card from the top of your song. Stand phase. Stand, aka place all of your horizontal cards in the vertical position, all of your resting creatures that are in the horizontal position, and flip your face down damage zone cards face up. Also, resting can be runes as well. Most of the time it's just creatures though. Main phase. This is the phase where you can summon creatures, use their abilities, play spells, or set runes, and use their effects by paying cost. Attack phase. Attack your opponent's creatures or the opposing player directly with the creatures on your field. To attack with creatures, you turn them from standing, aka the vertical position, to resting, the horizontal position, and declare the attack target, whether it's your opponent directly or one of their creatures. End phase. This is where you end the turn. Now it's important to note that at the stand phase, like stated earlier, this is where you get to flip your pay back face up, meaning you can go as far as you want with all of your pay skills. Say for example you had 7 pay and used all of it and flipped all of your damage zone cards face down. As long as you make it to your next turn during your stand phase, you can flip them back face up. But again, if you have a card that has a maintenance cost like a rune, you have to pay that cost before the stand phase occurs, so it's always important to leave some pay accessible either for traps or for making sure you can pay cost for maintenance. As for paying for card effects, as we were just going over, to activate the abilities of creatures or play spells or traps or use the effects of rune cards, there's typically a cost for. Sometimes there's a discard cost, but there are also the possibility of costs that involve other cards, but also the main cost, which is pay. Most cards have a pay cost, and for pay, the damage you take throughout the fight doesn't just track of how close you are to losing, it can also be used for the cost. For example, if a card says pay 1, you flip one of your damage zone cards face down in order to pay for that cost. So whatever a card says pay, let's say for example Crimson Dragon Revan over here, he says pay 2, so in that case you picked any 2 cards from your damage zone and then you flip flip them face down. Now, it's just that simple, and again, he also has a discard effect, so you also have to discard a card from your hand. But any card that just says pay, that's what it means. You just flip any number of cards equal to the number next to it in your damage zone face down. As for damage checks, we kind of went over this earlier, but damage checks are done when creatures are destroyed in battle and there's excess power. Say, for example, Revan versus Crimson Draco Kid, because Revan has 200 power and Crimson Draco Kid only has 100. When the attack goes through, a damage check occurs because there's excess power. When a damage check occurs, you reveal the top card of your song. If it's a trigger, activate that trigger effect. Once the trigger has been activated, whether it's a draw and you just draw a card, or it's a heal and you recover damage, or it's a damage trigger and you deal 1 damage to your opponent. Again, if it's a damage trigger, your opponent takes 1 damage before you take your damage. Place the damage triggered card into the damage zone face up. Even if the card wasn't a trigger, still send it to the damage zone face up anyways. And then as for gift checks, level 2 and 3s and sometimes level 1s have a gift check icon, meaning you can do a gift check when they attack by paying 1. When you pay the cost for a gift check after the opponent has declared a guard or no guard to the attack, reveal the top card of your song. If it's a trigger, activate the trigger effect. Once the trigger effect has been activated, add the reveal card to your hand. Even if it wasn't a trigger, you still add the card to your hand. So it is essentially just a damage check, but with a pay cost instead, and you get to add a card to your hand. And the important thing to notice for gift checks, you must pay the cost before the opponent declares a guard, which is important to know, and we'll just go ahead and go over this now, where the concept of guarding and battling happens. How battles work in this game is you declare an attack, and let's say you attack a creature. Before your opponent guards, you have the choice to activate on attack abilities and gift checks, and then beyond that, that's when your opponent can guard, or they can activate a trap. They cannot activate a trap and then guard. They have to go guard, trap, and then if you have any counters to that, you can activate it after they guard or after they declare a trap, but only once. So it is important to note that that's how it works. And then as for the actual attacking thing itself, attack declaration. When you attack, you have to announce who you're attacking and what you're attacking with. Example, player A uses Wizard of the Dark Arts Tiresias to attack player B's Crimson Draco Kid. When declaring attacks, unless specified through card effects, you must declare an attack on an opposing creature. If your opponent has no creatures, then you can attack them directly. Creature battling. When creatures battle, you compare the power values of both creatures. The one with the lower number is destroyed. When a creature attacks and destroys an opponent's creature, if there is excess power, your opponent takes 1 damage from the battle. Again, Wizard of the Dark Arts Tiresias versus Crimson Draco Kid is 200 versus 100. There's excess power, so Draco Kid would be destroyed. Your opponent would take 1 damage. And then equal power, if 2 creatures battle and their power is equal, so specifically neither player has to guard for this rule. If one side plays a trap and that's what makes it even, let's say they play defensive maneuvers while they were on Mender Droid and you attacked into it with Hammer Dragon, then because their power is equal and your opponent didn't guard, this would still occur here. Both creatures are destroyed and neither player takes damage. So a way to shut down possible damage and take down your opponent's creatures at once is to just choose not to guard and instead use alternate methods like I said earlier to increase your power during the battle phase to make them even and destroy both sides. However, cards that do that are far in between, so you really have to time it well for that. As for guarding though, an important part of battling, guarding can only be done with cards that have shield icons. Again, mostly level 1s, but sometimes level 2s and level 3s, such as Shield Guard Dragon, have that icon. When your creatures attack or you, the player, are attacked directly, you may use any number of cards in your hand with the shield icon to guard. To successfully block an attack, your shield value must be equal or greater to the attacking creature. If your opponent is attacking a creature, add the attacked creature's power to your shield value. And if you're wondering what the shield value is equal to the power of the creatures being used to guard. For example, a level 1 Crimson Draco has 100 power, meaning it has a shield value of 100. Triggers, although not having power, also have shield icons and shield values present above their shield icons. Heal triggers, like I said earlier, have 150 shield, draw triggers have 100, and damage triggers have 50. They can also be used mostly only by level 1s, but again, all triggers have shield icons and values too. Say for example, your opponent is attacking with Tiresias into Crimson Draco Kid, and you want to use a draw trigger that automatically is 200, so it's enough to block because it's equal. However, say for example, your opponent was attacking you directly with Tiresias instead of a creature, because your base shield value is technically 0 when you're being attacked directly, you would have to play more cards. So simple draw trigger, which has 100 shield, isn't enough. You need to play 2 draw triggers, or draw trigger and 2 damage triggers, or a heal trigger and a damage trigger, etc. And again, it can be equal, it can be more, it just really, as long as the shield is equal to the attacking power, then it is enough to block. After the guard, all cards used to guard are sent to the drop zone, and that's pretty much it for them. They don't really come back. Special timings, play order. With spells and creature effects that can trigger traps or effects that resolve at the same time, it is important to have an order of sequence for these. Chains, as they are called, resolve in order of the last card played going first. For example, if player A uses Unfair Deal and player B responds with Fire Blast, Fire Blast will activate first, followed by Unfair Deal. However, if the turn player activates multiple card effects that all resolve at the same time, they may choose the order the effects resolve in, but they must finish a card's effect as much as possible before moving on to the next card. Say, for example, one side side is playing and they have Spirit's Blessing on their board, they pay 3 to use Traveling Necromancer's Renew and bring back Vicious Wrath. Vicious Wrath's discard effect when it's summoned would activate at the same time as Spirit's Blessing's ability to add 50 power to all your creatures, so the turn player can choose to activate either or in respective orders, but whichever one they choose, whether it's discard one of the 50 power one first, they must finish that effect before they continue on with another one. Battle for cards. For effects of creatures that activate when they are destroyed, if they were destroyed by battle and damage is dealt, the damage check is resolved first, followed by the creature's ability to be destroyed. So if a creature had a when destroyed effect, since the damage is dealt first, you can then use the pay that you got from the damage trigger or from the damage in order to actually use the skill. And then we've already gone over damage trigger timing, so I won't go over it again. And that's pretty much it for the Thera rules video. There are different keywords for each song and nation that they own have. Say for example, Lagro has Combine, Drafter has Black Magic, Sauron has Renew, but those keywords are for their own type of videos. So without further ado, we're going to end this one here. We hope you all enjoyed, and we hope this rule comprehension video was a good introduction into the Rules of Thera. So we'll see you all in the next one, hopefully with more gameplay videos. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Spread the word around to Thera, it really does help out, and we'll see you all then. Don't forget to check us out.